In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the most popular pedals in pedal history, and of course that is the Ibanez Tube Screamer. We're going to go over a little bit about the history of the pedal, we're going to hear it of course, and we're going to answer the question, why do so many people love this pedal? Hey everyone, Eric here. Welcome to my channel where I make gear demos and instructional videos aimed to help musicians like you. If you like what you see here, please check out all the other videos. And if you want to, please subscribe to the channel. That would be a really big help. So the Tube Screamer is one of the most popular pedals in pedal history that I can think of. There are a few really good competitors, but the Tube Screamer is on almost everyone's board, some sort of variant. It is cloned and copied and modified in a whole bunch of different pedal companies today. We're not going to go too in-depth on the history of the Tube Screamer. If you would like to, there's another channel here on YouTube called The 5 Watt World who did a really great job going super in-depth on the history of this circuit. But in short, 1979, the Ibanez Tube Screamer was first made under the Maxon brand and relabeled for Ibanez. That was the TS-808. The successor was the TS-9, this one right here, which has been in production since 1982. Let's go ahead and look at the controls of the Tube Screamer. Right here, we have our drive control. Turn it up to get more drive, turn it down to get less drive. At minimum, you still get signal coming through the pedal. We have our volume control, which is our output level, and then in the middle here, we have our tone control. So let's go over a few different characteristics that the Tube Screamer imparts on your signal and why it is such a significant voice and a popular voice that guitarists want. The Tube Screamer is an overdrive pedal, so it breaks your signal up. It adds distortion, it adds drive, it adds saturation. There are a bunch of different terms that you can use, but it adds breakup of some sort, overdrive. And it does this in a way that is called soft clipping. And soft clipping can be characterized in a few different ways. Mainly, it's going to sound softer. It's going to have a little bit more smooth feel and smooth sound to it. So the Tube Screamer has this non-aggressive, but just smooth enough to be gritty texture to the drive. So the Tube Screamer rolls off your low end going into the circuit and your high end coming out of the circuit, which leaves you with a bunch of mid-range, and that lets you do a few different things. It gives you a few different results. Mainly, it lets your guitar cut through in a recording situation, a full band situation. A lot of people use these as solo boosts to get above the rest of the band when they want to be heard in specific lead lines or riffs, stuff like that. So it can be used to amplify your guitar's mid-range frequency to get a more in-your-face sound. to understand the Tube Screamer a little bit more and sort of manage expectations, let's talk about the negatives. Now, me personally, one thing that I absolutely hate about the Tube Screamer is that not all of your frequencies are going to be fully distorted. And what I mean by that is if you have a clean amp and you put the Tube Screamer on, even with your gain maxed all the way out, you're going to hear a little bit of clean signal coming through. Kind of like a blend, but it's not really a blend. What's actually happening is inside the Tube Screamer, we have our gain stage, our soft clipping gain stage. What happens is that the circuit rolls off your low end. It gradually rolls off your low end going into the drive. And this results in not all of your low frequencies being distorted at the same level as your high frequencies in your mid-range. If you are looking for a pedal to turn on and get your drive sound, like you turn it on and you want your signal to be completely distorted, the Tube Screamer is not going to work for you. But there are a handful of ways that you can use the Tube Screamer to get excellent results as long as you understand what you're using it for. The first use of the Tube Screamer that I would like to go over is using it as a solo boost. As we talked about before, the Tube Screamer has a very mid-range focused voice. So let's say you're in a band setting, you're playing your song, and you have a lead line that you want to just jump out a little bit for the listener. Rather than having to turn your amp up or go to a second channel that is set louder, what you can do oftentimes is kick on a Tube Screamer with the gain set pretty low, the volume set pretty high, and what that does is it gives you a clean voicing change for your guitar. So you're adding a bunch of mid-range into your signal, letting you stand out in the context of the song for a lead line, a riff, or a solo. One of my favorite amps of all time is the JCM 800, which ties into the second way I want to talk about using the Tube Screamer, and that is to tighten up your sound and attenuate low end. Sticking with the voicing of the Tube Screamer, it rolls off a lot of low end in your signal. So what we can do is we can put a Tube Screamer before a higher gain amp, something like a JCM 800, or even a higher gain amp, like a Mesa, a PV, a 6505, something like that. Oftentimes, guitarists will put a Tube Screamer in front of their amp to not necessarily boost their volume going into the amp, but rather, set it at unity gain, so when you kick it on, a lot of your low end going into the amp is then rolled off, giving you a tighter response and a more aggressive sound. In a similar vein to what we just talked about, running a Tube Screamer into the front of an amp is actually running a Tube Screamer into another pedal. Well, I guess it's this way. Another pedal down your signal chain to, again, tighten up your sound and put a little bit more mid-range back into the drive pedals down your chain. Sticking with gain stacking, let's go ahead and reverse the order of what we just talked about. So instead of running the tube screamer into another drive pedal, let's actually run something like a big muff, which is a fuzz pedal that's known for being scooped in the mid-range. Let's run that big muff into the tube screamer, which will then revoice that pedal. It'll revoice the big muff to add more mid-range and even more saturation. So with the tube screamer being so popular in guitar history, tons of musicians have used it to sculpt their sound. The main one in my mind is always Stevie Ray Vaughan. He used a tube screamer into a super reverb, I believe, and maybe a Vibrolux. Who is your favorite guitarist or bassist or musician who has famously used a tube screamer on recording and in their guitar rig? And another topic that I touched on before is clones and modifications. So there are tons of pedal companies today who were inspired directly by the tube screamer and who have different takes on the tube screamer. So let's go ahead and jump into just a few different modern takes on the tube screamer. Okay, so I got a whole bunch of pedals here. This is nowhere near as many, variations of the tube screamer on the market right now. So the oldest one that I have is the Bad Monkey from Digitech. This is a tube screamer with a 2-band EQ in this insanely heavy metal enclosure. I believe it's buffered bypass. It's got 2 different outputs for a mixer and an amp, so it's got cabinet simulation inside of it. Next up is the Fuzzlord Effects Doom Screamer, which has the normal controls, but it also has this toggle switch right here. It also has this toggle switch, which lets you choose between asymmetrical and symmetrical clipping, which give you different sounds depending on which position you have engaged. Another one, to my ears, is the Eagle Feather from Native Audio. I don't know if he makes it anymore, but this is like a higher gain version of the tube screamer. To my ears, it is, because it has that, it has that softer feel, and it has a little bit of that bass roll off, so the low end and your signal is not as distorted as the high end. But in addition to that, we have a 3-band EQ bass middle treble right there. And then another take on the tube screamer is the Iron Drive from Swindler Effects. In similar fashion to the other ones, we have volume, gain, and then we have a 2-band EQ over here with low and high. So we have the 2-band EQ right here, and then in the middle, we have a diode clipping toggle. So we have silicon LED, and then no diode clipping. So that gives you even more options to sculpt your sound. So that's a very small sample of different pedals that are based off of the Tube Screamer or a take on the Tube Screamer. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite take on the Tube Screamer from a smaller company or even a bigger one? So let me know that in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Tube Screamer. I hope it helped you understand why this pedal is so popular, and maybe it helped you understand how to use it a little bit better in your signal chain and your setup. If you did like this video, please subscribe to the channel, check out all the other gear demos and instructional videos I have here, and if you would like to follow me on a daily basis and interact with me a little bit more, you can always head on over to Instagram and follow me at Eric Merrow. Before I get out of here, I want to send a huge thank you to these folks right over here who are my executive producers from my Patreon page. I really appreciate all the support, and I cannot thank you enough. If you would like to learn more about my Patreon, I'll leave a link in the description below. So thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe, and I will see you in the next video.